Hey, it's John Lee Dumas of EO Fire, and it's The Entrepreneurial You, the show for dedicated and passionate Caribbean entrepreneurs seeking daily inspiration, brought to you by author, speaker, and award-winning entrepreneur Heneka Watkis-Porter. You must be prepared to ignite.
Hello. I am Heneka Watkis-Porter, your inspirational leader and podcast queen. Now, it seemed like it was just yesterday that I was wishing everyone a happy new year, and now I am about to do the same again. So clearly, time does fly. As cliche as that sounds, it does fly, or so it seems. Now, this is episode 93. And I decided to do a solo episode to speak directly to you about what this year has been like for me and what to expect in the coming year. I've had so many wins and, of course, a few disappointments, but throughout it all, I have remained grateful. I had set goals in many areas that are important to me. For example, spiritual, personal development in the areas of health and finance, social, emotional, and relational. Now, some of my targets were met and some weren't. So I've done my review and I've seen what worked and what needs to be tweaked. And so I've been doing that going into 2019. Of course, let me just start quickly by sharing just two of the low points for me, because I don't want to dwell on those, right? It's not my style to dwell on things that don't go so right. So, of course, I had to pay loads of cash to an opponent regarding a legal battle. And that for me was, I felt ambivalent about it. On one hand, I did it because it was costing, or I did it because I didn't want anything to be costing me my peace of mind, because I believe that anything that costs me my peace of mind is just too important, and I just wasn't going to have it. So on the one hand, I felt that, it was doing it I needed to settle. But in retrospect, on the other hand, it's a move having thought about it much more in depth and clearer than I did before, and having weighed everything and done my research, or more in-depth research, it's a move that I shouldn't have made. But again, I did it because of my peace of mind, right? I won't get into details of that, but just to say, it's one of those lower points for me. And it wasn't even a low point when I had to pay the money, but it was what I learned after paying the money and how I reflected and what was clearer to me, knowing that I should have stood my ground. Suffice it to say, I did. And I can't change it. It happened already. It's just for me to take the lesson and to move on. Now, another low point for me was that I became physically exhausted. I remember to the point one day that I got up from my bed and I couldn't walk. I know that kind of happened because of a fall. I had a very serious fall, and months before that, I had that fall, but it took a toll on my body because I became so exhausted. And it was just one of those moments when, like, oh my gosh, it's almost felt as though I felt life leaving my body. I think perhaps that could be a little dramatic, but yeah, when you're used to be sprightly and up and about and you're suddenly not able to be that person, it can feel like the life is leaving your body. I remember one day I got up to leave my house and I had to just lay on the bed for a little while, lay on my couch rather, for a little while after I was ready and about to leave. Like, my body was saying, no, you got to rest for about 15 minutes. And then I got back some energy. And I know it happened as a result of, that fall. I was in another country for a long time. And also, the altitude, the difference in time zone, the fast pace at which I was going, trying to function in one time zone in the East and also in Jamaica at the same time. And my body was like kind of confused. I became ill. So that period was not a great period, but it was also a time though that I recognized that I need to give my body a little more respect. In fact, a lot more respect than I was giving it. And so I have been more intentional these days. I mean, I still have a long way to go, because when you're a self-professed workaholic, well, people call me that as well, right? When you continue to work consistently, getting to really slow down and getting to that period can be a challenge. So, but I'm being very intentional these days, taking more rest, not working as long hours, and resting on weekends, and taking more downtime than I was. I still do my schedule because I'm a planner, but there are times when I decide, you know what, I'm not going to be held hostage to my own schedule, and I just free flow. There are times when I do that, and I know it works for me. It gives me better peace of mind, and I'm still accomplishing what I set out to do, but I'm also respecting my body, and I need to give my body that respect. Now, that's as much as I will say for the low points. There have been several high points. So I'm going to talk about a few just briefly. I won't go into too much details, because over time, I know you've been following me and you would have been made aware of them as well. So on the spiritual side, I launched my daily devotion podcast. I launched it on Anchor.fm, and I've been just doing it daily. Now, this podcast is really a very brief time when I share personally out of devotional time. I share some of that, and I make it public on that podcast, that podcast is not one that I promote, market or anything for any material gain or any financial gain. It simply is just there as a valve, as an outlet, as a spiritual tool, growth tool for me, feeling more connected to my supreme being, to my creator, to my God. Right. So that is why I do my daily devotion. And it's just, I am a kingdom person who is an entrepreneur, not an entrepreneur who's a kingdom person. Right. So I'm a kingdom person. I'm a kingdom ambassador who is an entrepreneur. And that is who I am at the core. At the core, I recognize that without God, I am nothing, that He has made me into everything that I am today, that every power that lies within me comes through Him and from Him. And so I give honor to Him by recognizing Him as the Lord of my life and Savior and Master. And then, as also it relates to spiritual, but all, and there are other Alice from that as well, is the co-authoring of a devotional, which is called According to His Word, a 31-day devotional for entrepreneurs. And that I have co-authored with Dr. Vernette A. Joseph. He is based in the USA. He's ambassador. He's all these amazing things. I met him first in St. Martin when I spoke at Dominate 360. And that's in St. Martin, hosted by Ife Badajo. And I met him, and we've maintained contact since 2016. And just, is somebody who is very supportive, somebody who you want to be in your network. And he raised you up. He's somebody who will, he's a team player and stuff. So we've co-authored this devotional. And Dr. Vernette is going to be here in Jamaica in February 2019, speaking at LearnFest, in addition to Dr. Will Moreland, who is an awesome, amazing speaker that I also met when I was in St. Martin as well in 2016. So look out for that devotional coming at the end of December here, and made available. It's going to be launched in 2019. And then I was also featured in this international magazine, which is produced by Dr. Vernette A. Joseph as well. So that was another high point for me. It's called Productive Business. And it was, the feature was about finding my voice. And similarly, I was featured in The Gleaner and the Flair production of The Gleaner about finding my voice as well. And from here on, like from the international magazine that I'm talking about, Productive Business and The Gleaner feature, and here on pretty much most of the things that I'm going to be sharing with you, they're as a result of my podcast, The Entrepreneurial You, as you know. So I was in 2018, at the beginning of the year, a speaker at the Jamaica Stock Exchange conference, where I spoke on why we need to have a podcast, right? So that's another high point. Another one was the podcast workshop that I've hosted. I've hosted 4. And so over those 4 cohorts, I've trained 33 persons about podcasting, just introducing them to the subject of podcasting. And you have a good percentage of those cohort members who are launching their own podcast. I must make special mention of Julia Barnes, who has just taken the information and been, has been running with that platform, and she's about to launch her own podcast. And there's also John Richards, who is doing amazing things with her Comment My Worship brand and her Crew 44 brand. And she's going to be launching her podcast and her magazine in February. So, and other cohort members are doing amazing things. I know that Michelle Sinclair Darley has just launched her speaking business and her voiceover business and hosting business and so on. Very excited for her as well and what she's been doing. Then I don't even want to start calling names, because then I get into trouble, and because I won't be able to call everybody's names, right? And following on the podcast, then I've been doing the live workshop, but I've also launched the online podcast course as well. So persons, wherever they are in the world, wherever you are in the world, you can access that course. I have also started writing for the LeaderCast blog. Now, that for me is great, because LeaderCast, as you know, is the brand that is all about leadership. It's all about developing leaders worth following. And so when I reached out to them to contribute and I was accepted, that for me, it did something, like, yes, because I've always wanted to write for a big platform, and the LeaderCast brand, their platform is huge, and it's one that is recognized around the world, and it's one that is aligned. It aligns well to what it is that I am doing and what it is that I believe in. They valued me so much that they sent me a personalized package with pens and blankets and just little goodies, just to show appreciation for my being with them, spreading the word, developing leaders worth following. Not just writing through the blog, but I also hosted my very first LeaderCast event in May, LeaderCast Kingston, and the response was overwhelmingly phenomenal. So I am grateful for that. That was a high point for me. The sponsors that came on board, the team members executed so well. I remember being in the room when I was thrown in the back of the room by one of my team members. I think it was Michelle, who said, "You gave us a task to do now. Allow us to do it, please." Right? Because I was trying to micromanage. Well, not really trying to micromanage, just wanted to make sure that everything was running smoothly. As I believe, organizing an event, I need to make sure that everybody's experience is great. But then, I realized that I didn't need to be doing that, because my team was so competent and they had the event and everybody's best interest at heart. So I was made to sit somewhere in the room and enjoy the conference. And when I sat at the back of the room and watched how everything unfolded, I thought to myself, I was in a different seminar, I was in a different event, and I wanted to meet the speaker at the end. Not the speaker, the organizer. I wanted to meet the organizer at the end of the event. I'm like, oh, wait a minute, but you are the organizer. Okay. One less work to do, one less person to meet. Haha. All right. So that was LeaderCast Kingston. And then there was LeaderCast Women in October. Now, before I even continue on to LeaderCast Women, I must give a big shout out to Dr. Nsombe Jaja, who throughout it all, when the valley moments came, and that's why you have to surround yourself with people who will raise you up, because there were some valley moments in preparing for LeaderCast Kingston, particularly because I was away in the early part of the year, which took 2 months out of my planning time and organizational time to execute LeaderCast Kingston. And so when I had my valley moment, and I remember reaching out to and somebody, she just, when I was looking for somebody to have a pity party with, she would have none of it, right? So pity party canceled, and we went into, she spoke over me and spoke into my spirit, and where's this woman of faith that she knows, and so the faith, though it was sinking, it arose because I was able to have somebody to speak so positively in my life, and to stand on the word and to stand with me in faith, and knowing that it could be done. And it was done. And so during LeaderCast Women, LeaderCast Kingston, and somebody looked at me and said, oh, we're doing LeaderCast Women. Like, okay, then if you say we're doing it, we're doing it. And, that feeling of overwhelm came upon me. And then I just released it because I know that it is well. And so LeaderCast Women happened, and it was a phenomenal success. It was a phenomenal success. Like, the experience was like none other. The sponsors, the team, like everybody just came together and made it happen. The testimonies that we have to prove that what I'm saying, it's not just me talking, because, I have vested interest. It really is the reality. It really is what people experience. And I'm happy to have been the person to be driving LeaderCast in Jamaica now. LeaderCast is really the largest one-day leadership event in the world. And so it happens in Atlanta, Georgia every year, where you have up to 7,000 people attending, and persons like Tyler Perry, Condoleezza Rice, Molly Fletcher, Steve Wozniak, so many other persons, prominent persons, and not so prominent as well, but they've all been excellent in their own right, have been speakers on the platform. And so in addition to the live event in Atlanta, Georgia every year, it is streamed around the world to another 100,000 people. So the mantra of LeaderCast is, as I mentioned, to develop leaders worth following. So it's an exceptional event. And I want to share, as I talk about LeaderCast, that LeaderCast Kingston is happening on May 10, 2019. So if you go to HenekaWatkis-Porter.com, you get an opportunity to save 40%, to get, 40% discount on your tickets. So ticket sales have been open since the end of, since the beginning of October, or the middle of October, when LeaderCast Women ended. So go right ahead. So I've talked about my high points in terms of the devotional that I've co-authored with Dr. Vernette A. Joseph, as well as the devotional podcast that I've launched. I've talked about being featured in the international magazine Productive Business, and the Gleaner have spoken at the Jamaica Stock Exchange Conference. And I'm also going to be speaking again in 2019. Talked about my podcast workshop, talked about the online podcast course, and the LeaderCast blog and events. And predominantly, most of these have been as a result of the podcast, right? Either directly or indirectly. The Jamaica Conference Center, the Jamaica Stock Exchange rather, has been a supporter of mine from very early days. From I had the podcast, before it was a podcast, from I had it on radio, they have been a partner. And so, we've partnered before in terms of I've pitched in their pitch room before. We've just had a growing relationship, and one that is maturing into something even more beautiful. So I'm happy for the podcast that has enabled all of this to happen. Now, another of my high point is, and it's where I'm going to end in terms of my high points, and it has been my visit to India. Now, India. I talk about it so much. People must be wondering, is it the only country I've ever been? I talk about India a lot because single-handedly, it's the country, or it's the visit I've had, it's a travel that have impacted my life the most, single-handedly. I've been away to the United States for 3.5 months when I was in my late teens. And that was through church. I was a camp counselor in one of the churches. I was there for 3.5 months. But single-handedly, I've been away. It's the longest I've ever been away outside of the US. Been away from my home for 2 months. And just the overall experience, when you think about the disparity in Jamaica, and you think about the haves and the have-nots, right? And how that disparity and the unevenness of the distribution of wealth and income and so on. Just imagine India with 1 billion people, that disparity increase maybe 1,000-fold or more, right? So there's a wide disparity. And so the affluence that you see on one hand, and then on another hand, you see the extreme poverty, right? And all of this coexisting. And sometimes they want to let you feel like, the caste system is no longer relevant, or is no longer active. It is very much active in India. And I think that is predominantly why the distribution of income and wealth is so uneven because, again, also religion plays a major role in that society, and the caste system is justified by religion because you're born into your lot and that's what you deserve and all of that stuff, right? So that is one thing. The diversity of culture in that country is, I've not been anywhere where there's so much diversity of thought, diversity of religion, diversity of people. The people just look like they're, I love to look at the way the women in particular dress. I am in love with their dress. I'm in love with all of that. I'm in love. One of the things though that I didn't finish my thought a while ago, and I must stop it, yeah? Right. One of the things I love about India and was more impactful and most impactful on my visit was that visit to the Indira Gandhi Museum, and visiting the Indira Gandhi Museum and just hearing the story of how powerful that woman was and ahead of her time and how she impacted change in a very positive way, and to know that she was assassinated. But it was one day before her death when she said that, I'm here today. I may not be here tomorrow, but when I die, every drop of my blood will invigorate India and strengthen it. That for me, it just evokes a profound sense of courage. It evokes that sense of I can do anything and it doesn't matter what. I must be standing for something, even if I die. And when I die, you know, I would have had so much impact on lives and change mindset and for the better. That is remarkable. And that is what has rested on my spirit to this day. And particularly because I remember encountering a situation where I had to stand, and I decided to stand at all costs. Cost it what it will, I was going to stand. I mean, you know me well enough. You know that I am somebody who I'm very strong. I'm well opinionated. I am very firm. I'm very strong. But there was an even greater resolve for me to be stronger and for me to stand for what I believe, regardless of who is with me. Even if I have to stand alone, let me stand, right? Because once I settle in my mind what the consequences are and I'm ready to deal with those consequences, then I can stand regardless. So that for me was it. There's just so much about India, right? So much. I mean, our visit to the Taj Mahal. The Taj Mahal is beauty, indescribable beauty. The Hawa Mahal, the Jaga Fort, Agra Fort, the Albert Hall Museum, right? I was mostly based in Delhi, but of course I went to Jaipur, Dehradun, and other places. That just a great experience, right? I'm talking about India so much, but anyway, there were some observations, and even as it relates to entrepreneurship, some of the observations for me that stood out, of course, is like the high level of support to the SMEs by the government of India is so commendable, so admirable, you know, and the way, the perspective, because I was there on a scholarship to India doing entrepreneurship, the perspective that entrepreneurship is taught from, like, first of all, I was blown away by the way in which the lecturers themselves delivered material. I mean, English is not their first language. Most of them, a very small percentage had, you know, struggles delivering perfectly in English, right? For the most part, it was well delivered in English, and their perspective and their knowledge and their ability to not just lecture, but to bring out case studies and bring out activities, and we do activities and group work and stuff that really brought across the point, talking about, stuff like, you know, approaching new subject areas for me, like blue ocean technology in starting a business and so on. So it was well presented. Back to the point of the high level of SME support, that was evident on every street corner that I go to. It was so clear that the government supports small businesses. There is, interestingly, one type of taxation across the country. Communication is accessible to all, and we know how good for business that is. Telephone calls within the country are free. As long as you're calling within India, your call to another person, it is free. Free FREE. Prioritization of historical sites for tourist attraction. We see a lot of that, and the preservation of things like, places like the Taj Mahal, the Hawa Mahal, and so on, and all these amazing buildings, right? We also visited a lot of temples, but I didn't go into the temple or any one of them, I guess, because of personal reasons, right? I chose not to because of personal reasons. But the temple building on the outside, the luxurious way in which, and the pristine condition in which the environment is kept, wow, mind-boggling. And then when you juxtapose that to some of the areas on the streets, yeah, you wonder, are you in the same place really? Like this level of cleanliness and everything. But overall, like I said, I love India, and it's just, it is what it is, right? I mean, India is doing so well. They're sending people to space, right? It's just a good look, for India. When they think about their education and their technology, they're really, really up there. They are a force to be reckoned with. Of course, I was exposed to various enterprises operated by individuals and corporations, from very, very small to the very, very large, and to see how they manufacture some of the things that we get here in Jamaica and other parts of the world that are exported. One of the experience for me that stood out again was the mode of transportation that was used. My favorite, of course, is the tuk-tuk. And if I can write a book about my experience riding on the road, driving on the road, walking on the road. And you wonder, it's the most organized chaos I've ever seen. Organized chaos, right? It's the most organized chaos I've ever seen. When you're on the street and you these people are so close to each other. The motorists are so close to each other, like millimeter close to each other. And there's no touching, there's no accident. Well, that I've seen anyway. Right? The handmade products that I saw a lot of that. Customer care experiences and negotiation skills. Must talk about negotiation skills. I mean, shopping in India is an interesting phenomenon, right? So you go to the markets, particularly like there are some places that are fixed prices, but for the most part, you go into a store or market and you ask, how much is this item? Okay, 1,000 rupees. All right, fine. So then you ask the next question is, what's the best price? And they'll tell you, okay, 700 rupee. And then you say to them, oh, I have 200 rupee, no more, 200 rupee. And you say that with a straight face and you're walking away, and then you're called back. So that same item that costs 1,000 rupee, you're now paying 200 rupee for it. Go figure, right? So I love that. I mean, I personally though, I love the fact, let me tell you what I love about it. I love the fact that I could get something that they say is 1,000 for 200. But I seriously had a challenge, and to this day, there's something about me that does not like. That is why I prefer people just give me their best price, because I don't like the idea of trying to get something for $500 when you tell me it's 1,000. Like, there's something in me that cringe, and maybe it's because as an entrepreneur, a business owner, when I set a price, I don't want you to bring my price down because there's value attached to that. And so intrinsically in me, there is something that cringes at the idea of wanting to bring somebody's price down. But intrinsically in me also, as a Jamaican, it's in my DNA, because I go to the market and I'm negotiating and I'm saying, okay, this thing costs $1,000, or let's not say $1,000. Nothing costs so much, like $100 per pound or $200 per pound. I'm like, okay. And I want to get broader. It's like you're actually still bringing down person's price because you're getting more for less, right? So I have a challenge with that, with negotiation, because for that reason. Anyways, moving right along. So of course, nature is preserved and protected a lot, like that. Now, when you see some on the street, you see some very simple processing of products. For example, the sugarcane juice that they squeeze, you watch them squeeze that. So it's really nice. And the things that they sell, like coconut, that we just can't, but we take for granted. We only cook rice and peas here. They're selling coconut and stuff on the road and cut it up and sell it. And it's just a nice little item, just as we would buy mangoes or something on the street. And overall, I want to say that, India's culture is extremely rich. And that's why I love it. The diversity, the interesting things on it. To this day, I smile because I remember going into a restaurant to eat, and I saw a group of us were in the restaurant, and when we were finished eating, I looked up and I saw a sign on the wall that says, "We do not serve onion and garlic on a Tuesday." Of course, I thought that was so random, and I went up to the person at the front and I asked why onion and garlic and why on a Tuesday, and he said to me that he pointed to a god, an idol in the corner, and he says that our God does not like onion and garlic on a Tuesday. And I walked away with my straight face and I said, okay, thank you very much. All right, so that is it for my observation in India. I've spent so much time in India. You would think this podcast is about India, right? No, it's not. But I've learned some lessons over the last 12 months, and some things that I'm going to be moving forward with, that you just need to, first of all, you need to stand up for what you believe in. I've learned things and I've reinforced things have been reinforced. So stand up for what you believe in. Do not give up your rights. Be adventurous. Take risks. Take chances. Those are some of the things that I've learned. Of course, part of my review process is reviewing the podcast, and I've went out and got some questions answered and asked for, recommendations for changes, and some of the things that, based on what was said, I'll be implementing going forward. So what you can look forward to in 2019 is that there's going to be a new website, which is going to be launched in January. And it's going to be an improved blog focusing on topics that are very important to entrepreneurs and leaders. So I'm going to, yes, I've been looking at those, but I'm going to be zoning in a lot more and focusing on themed interviews that will yield actionable takeaways for you. So some of the response I got, yes, it's good to listen, but I needed to be more focused in the interviews and the conversations. I've taken that to heart, and I'm going to now implement those and make sure that you have actionable steps from each conversation to walk away with, because it's not just enough to have conversations with all these amazing people, but I want it to be framed in such a way that you get value from it. So I am truly, truly looking forward to 2019 and all the possibilities that will be surfacing. Of course, I've put a plan together, been looking on my 2018 review and, reviewing to see what I could have changed, what I could have done better, what worked, what didn't work, right? I need to know now from you, how has 2018 been for you, and what will you be doing in 2019? I really want to hear from you. So go to HenekaWatkis-Porter.com and you can send me a voice note or a WhatsApp message. When you go on my website, there to the right, there's an opportunity to either send me a voice message or you can send me a WhatsApp message. I'll be happy to respond to you. So thank you so very much for spending time with me. I'm going to ask you to subscribe and leave a rate and review on the podcast in iTunes if you have not already done so. And of course, if you're listening in from my website, then there is an opportunity to leave a comment on the show notes page of the episode. Remember, you are born to win, but to be a winner, you must plan to win.
We needed to raise capital, but our experience with local financial institutions was that they were cautious and slow to act, and interest rates were far too high. We had real concerns about financing our business through outside equity investors and the possibility of interference. Could we get a fair valuation for our business? We had our own ideas about the business and its value. Should I go the traditional route of bank financing, or should I try the Jamaica Stock Exchange? So we made a call and experienced transformation of our business through conversations. I'm John Mahfood, CEO of Jamaican Teas, and we're listed on the Jamaica Stock Exchange.
Give us a call today at 876-967-3271 to begin your transformation through conversation. We want to see your company listed on the Jamaica Stock Exchange.
As you know, it does take work to produce one 30-minute podcast episode, which is a joy for me. Perhaps you're wondering if you could contribute to this work, and the answer is yes. For as little as $2 per month, you can make a contribution to go a far way. Go to patreon.com/TEY. That's patreon.com/TEY. And there are perks awaiting you right there. So thank you so much. I'm looking forward to your support.